I'm just oblivious and I forget. There's no real reason. But anyway, I'm signing that on. Okay, as soon as it gets on, I have to get off. There we go. Yes. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, all right. Well, this is going to be a very interesting session because I don't know. We'll just go through it, and because I think it's going to be. I mean, it was illuminating to me. You know, and I'd read a lot of these things in the Red Book, but I really hadn't understood them before. But this first one is on 12:20, and in a lot of these things, we need to look and say, who are we talking about here? Who is he talking about here? And let's just go through it. And so it's 12:20:13. And he's just talking. Now, this whole thing, and I think this is kind of let the secret out of the bag. He's talking about his visions and the fact that he's been introduced to the visionary world. He realizes that it is real and it's autonomous and it's not him. And he did not know that before. And uh, uh, so now he is very grateful and he's trying to describe his emotions. Okay. So anyway, he starts it out like this. There are many uncertainties. The main one is, should I keep this new life and world? This new world is weak and artificial. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not, somebody hitting us on the head with a hammer, but wait till you hear what he says more about it. Artificial is a bad word, but I've learned that weak artificial beginnings, and I love this term, the unsightly put together semi-unrealities. Now, how do you like that? That kind of describes the hypnagogic state. The unsightly put together semi-unrealities can develop into horrible realities. Now, I think what he's talking here is his fear of going insane, that he's going insane. And, Elijah will mention this later when he thinks that he has megalomania. And that's why he's resisting it, that he might get megalomania or, some type of he knew people at Bergolzi who had Christ complexes and things like that, So it could develop into a horrible, these mustard seeds that grow into a tree. A word conceived in the womb of the poor version becomes a god with a 2,000-year-old history. So in other words, what's going to become of me with all these visions that I'm having? So then he starts to talk about, and let me just read the last line because I think it's going to put everything else in context. This is the last paragraph. My soul, you wanted me to write down and utter all these words. I did not know that you guarded such secrets. I am astonished. You are an unbelievable riddle. Okay. Now he's talking about these things he's experienced since October 27th, I think, and now it's December 20th. And this is maybe like the 13th or 14th entry. Anyway, I have received your sprout. You who are to come. I have received your sprout. I have received the first bud that came up above the earth from your root. I've seen it. So I don't know how it's going to affect me yet, but I've received it. And who sent it? You who are to come, I have received this sprout in deepest need and loneliness. I mean, he's in a deep depression. Everything he's here talking about is intensely personal. There's nothing generalized about this. I covered this sprout, these first visions, in shabby patchwork and I bedded this sprout down on my words of straw. And the mockers in me grinningly worshiped the sprout. In other words, he's reeling, and he's enchanted by them, but he's not sure what they are. The sprout is the child of you who are to come. Your child, your odd, wondrous child, the child of the one who is to come, the child who will announce the Father. Now, this is an interesting way. I mean, because this is Elijah was the announcer of a new God. John the Baptist is the announcer of a new God. Young is the last fish and the first water bearer. He doesn't know this yet, but now, so the child who will announce the Father, the fruit that is older than the tree on which it grows. So anyway, the Father, or the one who is to come, is the father of the sprout. This is his child, so that's kind of a mystery, a little bit of a mystery. It's always been, somehow the God is always thought of as a child, and I don't know. This is from Meister Eckhart. He goes into his house and there's a boy there. He's the sprout, and Eckhart talks to him and he says, "Where do you come from?" And he says, "I come from God." "Where are you going?" "To God." "Where will you find him?" "I will find him when I leave all created things." Well, this means to go into the depths, Who are you? A king. Where's your kingdom? In my heart. But no one shares it with you, so I share it with them. Eckhart takes the boy to his room. "Take any clothing you like," he says. "Take any clothing you like," he says. "Then I would not be a king," the boy replies, and vanishes. Now, Eckhart is talking about his sprout, his own inner child, or it's it is the Philosopher's Stone, I really think, that's talking out loud within him. This third thing, which is going to be personality number 2 or whatever, that we learn in alchemy. It's our temple of wisdom, where ego becomes the empty vessel that's going to be filled with the images from the other world, and now this empty vessel filled with soul is the Philosopher's Stone. But anyway, now here's some other interesting comments about this. "In pain were you conceived." Well, that was his having to renounce all the prestige that he gained in psychological circles, "and lust glowed about your birth." And hi, Adam, we're just getting started, so nice to see you. "Lust glowed about your birth. The air shook with the anthem of blaspheming souls when the God plunged you in my heart." So anyway, he's just talking about the doubt that a thinking function person would have when they're confronting all this stuff, And okay, he describes, "Fear is your herald. Fear is what announced you or brought you forth. Doubt stands to your right and disappointment to your left." So the fathers of this new God, which is awakening within young, is fear, doubt, and disappointment. Okay. And he'll talk about this more, and this is really instructive to all of us, I think. We shrank together in our ridiculousness of senselessness when we caught sight of you, most strange, miraculous child. You see, these are the inner visions. There were just this idea of the absurd in them, and is he having hallucinations, or is he communicating with the depths while he is awake, in an active imagination? Our eyes were blinded and our knowledge fell silent when we received your radiance. Now, this is a very interesting comment on the role of the ego when we're doing active imagination. Our eyes were blinded and our knowledge fell silent when we received your radiance, that which is beyond words. This is the wisdom of the depths. It doesn't need English grammar. Hi, Kathy. We're just getting started. You haven't missed too much. You new spark of an eternal fire into which night and what kind of mud were you born? Well, he's talking about himself. He's the night, he's the mud in which she was born. This was born. And here he's talking about the fires of madness are blazing towards you as sacrificial fires. He just has this sense of this is, he's now in another realm. This is not the realm. And then he's going to describe the two realms that are at work here. Ice cold hands of steel murderously grasp after you, but they will melt helplessly from your glow. This can't be grasped. They will mix the venom of treacherous thoughts into your food, and they themselves will pine away because of it. The treacherous thoughts are venom, and yet even though they demean this thing, when it's not there, it's there's a great grieving, and I've experienced that myself. When you lose the connection, and it's all gone, you'll grieve from it. Lustful and heavenly beauty will approach your camp. One would like to slobber over you in heat. This is the one that is just, aesthetically overwhelmed. And the other would like to trample you arrogantly. And that's the thinking function. So I think these somehow refer to the functions too. But they will powerlessly worship you and lay their hands under your feet. This is the true meaning. This is what meaning is. I had somebody tell me the other day that they wanted to have a meaningful conversation with me, and I said, I'm just at a point, now where can you really talk about these things we're doing with someone else, who's not introduced to them? And do they want it? And he wanted to more, what he meant by meaning is to sit and talk philosophy. And I don't want to do that. I really don't. It's just, it's almost sacrilege, And so I didn't know what to say to him. Okay. Anyway, you will wring truthful prayers from your believers, and they must invoke your glory in tongues that are atrocious to them. You will fall on them in their hour of their disgrace and humiliation, and will become known to them in what they hate, fear, and abhor. Okay, well, how do we get in touch with the depths? We get in touch with the depths through experiencing the hour of ego's disgrace and humiliation, and through ego's what it fears and abhors. I mean, in other words, this is when ego is empty finally, and lost everything and hit bottom. Now suddenly the depths can speak. Before they had no access to ego because it was too powerful. Your face, O child, will be found in the hideous features of mighty beasts in the remotest ground of our souls. And this is that's what I just it's just a kind of a revelation, that all of these thoughts and things are coming from this, this face. That's who's speaking here. It's not human. It's what's speaking to us is life itself, and there's nothing human about it. That same voice in us is in this face as well. It speaks its language through images, and based on its instinctual existence, but it's the same voice, except now, it's dealing with the creature called Homo mythicus. Just a second, damn it.
It seems totally appropriate, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does. Amy, would you do something? Okay. All right. Sorry.
Oh, you're on mute. You muted yourself, Craig.
Yeah, this little puppy wants to come in the room and the other dog objects. Okay. Well, anyway, it is appropriate. Okay. So your voice, Amy, please come with that. Your voice, the rarest pleasing sound, will be heard amid the horrible stammerings of wretches, rejects, and those condemned as worthless. Now, this is your voice, the rarest pleasing sound. So, I mean, these voices that speak to us are the rarest pleasing sound, but they're not going to come through to our persona. They're going to come through after you've gotten rid of everything, like Inanna does, and came to the depths through the seventh gate into the underworld with nothing, and then maybe the depths can have a conversation with us. Your realm will be touched by the hands of those who also worshipped before the most profound lowliness, and whose longing drove them through the tide of evil. Now, he's talking sort of biblically here, but this is intensely personal. He's talking about himself. What opened up this world for him? And it was all this pain that he suffered up till in these last weeks. And this sprout, this child, gives its gifts to those who pray to you in terror and doubt. Young, it's talking about young. And your light will shine upon those whose knees must be bend before you unwillingly and are filled with resentment. Again, that's young right now. Your life is your life is with he who has overcome himself and who has disowned his self-overcoming. So, I mean, this is a person who is, again, I think it is, he has this statement in the Red Book, you can't be fully human. And what he means by fully human is not what we mean by fully human until you've touched bottom. And this is what you often discover in addiction recovery or something, that you can't really begin your recovery until everything you had has been taken away from you, and you suddenly are know that this is a life or death matter. This is it. I either decide for life or I'm going to be snuffed out, one of the two. So, I mean, that kind of crystallizes the decision for a person who's going to kick a very powerful addiction. And he says, and then this is again talking about the only way you can come to this is through great weakness, not through great strength. I know that the salvation of mercy is given only to those who believe in the highest and then faithlessly betray themselves for 30 pieces of silver. Well, Judas is an ideal candidate for the depths, but he has to betray his highest value first. After he's betrayed his highest value, now the depths are saying, "You're okay. You've experienced your initiation. Now we can talk to you. Betray what you most love, and then we can talk with you." Peter denies Christ 3 times. Those who will dirty their pure hands and cheat their best knowledge against error and take their virtues from a murderer's grave are the only ones invited to your great banquet. Again, this is the way to the depths is through, and this, I think our dreams always say this, and so do fairy tales. The dreams say, you're in a town, you can't find your car. It's nowhere to be found. You don't know where you are. You don't know what street you're on. And what does that tell us? The ego can't help you now. So what are you going to do? The king's 2 sons try to lift the enchantment. They can't do it. The representatives of the ego will never lift the curse on the land. The only one that can lift the curse on the land is the one who is totally foreign to ego and who relies on animal helpers, and that's the fool. So and then he says, the constellation of your birth is an ill and changing star. Again, that's kind of a sort of an allusion to his fascination with Heraclitus, where he thinks God is an ever-changing being, that always, and if you talk about anybody's meaning, like our meaning, if our meaning comes from this work, it's an ever-changing star, because everything we do changes us, and the depths respond to what we do, and so it's growing and going somewhere. It's not a fixed point. Like there's no absolute truth. It's evolving. Life is a becoming thing. We don't want to, I mean, if you want to go into the world of non-being where things don't change, then nothing ever happens, So anyway, and then he says, he ends this thing, these, O child of what is to come. These, O child, the child are the visions that he's experienced. The one who is to come is the parent of the child, are the wonders that will bear testimony that you, and this is Jung saying about what he's experienced over the last 12 weeks, are a veritable God. And then I read this already, but he says, my soul, you wanted me to write down and utter all these words. I did not know that you guarded such secrets. I am astonished, and you are an unbelievable riddle. Well, that's quite an initiation into the depths, I think. That's the first dialogue. Does anybody have any comments of their strength, hope, and experience they want to share? Or we can just go on to the next one. Hi, Charles. Okay, well, feel free to speak up anytime, if you have any questions or comments. Okay, well, then now we're going to go to the next one. This is the second episode of Elijah and Salome of 3. I think they show up again at the very end. And then, of course, when the woman at the scholar's house says, I bring you greetings from Salome, so I mean, I think they come up 2 more times after this. And Jung was really amazed after after being gone for 6 to 7 years, he suddenly sees Elijah and Salome again. And he said they hadn't changed at all. Nothing happened. So he's kind of thinking that these figures in the depths, he had to catch them up on what he's done since he last saw them. So they really don't know what's going on. So anyway, now this is so we did the first one last time, and this is the second episode, and so this is on 1222, and he is asking, these marginal comments sometimes are more instructive to me than some of these fabulous mystery plays. What he says at the beginning and what he says at the end, because they're in the black books, unedited, real time, and they kind of so he's speaking only to himself, not writing for anybody. So he's sort of speaking about what he's been experiencing and trying to get it down in a confessional type format, So he sits down at his writing desk, and his first words are, "What am I going to write? Everything is dark in front of me. There's no shape. There's no bright. There's no dark. It's just the gate to darkness. Now, who enters here must grope for what is closest to him, in the utter darkness." This you can probably feel this when you're in a dark room. You grope for what is closest. He must feel his way from stone to stone. No clear thought comes towards him. He has to sample them all, even though they're not clear thoughts. They're random images, that don't seem to make any sense. And why is this? Well, it's because the valuable and the worthless must be embraced with the same kind of love, because we don't know what's valuable here. Maybe in the ego we have a sense of that, but not here. Because in this world of darkness, our values are suspended. A mountain can be the smallest nothing. It doesn't mean anything. And a sand grain could contain universes. Or it may not. It says, every value judgment must fall off from me. Equally every logical judgment, even my taste, must be shed before this gate, the gate to the darkness. You get rid of all your knowledge, and above all, sacrifice your arrogance, even when it seems to be based on merits. And this is going in there with no presumptions, because this is the world of that bare face, not the one that ego has built up with its, flimsy constructs. Who enters here enters as a poor or stupid person, because what we call knowledge here is ignorance. Seeing here is blindness. Hearing here is deafness. Feeling here is dullness. You enter through the gate entirely poor, pathetic, humble, and ignorant. This is the only way you can communicate with this depths. Even in your poverty, ignorance, and humility, you can't be greedy or presumptuous about what's going to come through the darkness. You should expect neither bread nor stones, but you should just look on without desire or passion. Just what's going to come. It just is going to pop up. It kind of reminds me of, the creator god Brahman in Hindu pantheon. He's the creator god. And what happens is something comes into his head and boom, it's there. It's an elephant. Another thing comes into his head, boom, there, it's a tiger. But he's just as astonished and stupefied as all the people in the audience. He's the conduit of the creation, but he's not the creation. The creation is far beyond Brahman, you know. So he's just this portal through which it comes through, you know. And you should turn all your anger against yourself, because only you can hinder yourself from seeing. And this mystery play, or these images, are as delicate as air and as thin as smoke. But you, or us, we're brutal matter that itself is already disturbingly heavy. And it's an obstacle, you know. It's not helpful. Our awareness. You let all hope, which is your greatest good and highest ability. You let your hope, which is your greatest good and your highest ability. Hope is our greatest good and our highest ability. Precede and serve you as your leader. You know, in other words, I think it really is. Edinger says that a prayer is a request from the depths to send us an image with which we can have a dialogue. And I think that describes what he's talking about here as hope. You know, hope is the greatest good here. It is our highest ability here. And it precedes and serves us as our leader in the world of the dark. This is this prayerful expectation, because that we are in need of an image. We need an image, because this hope is of similar substance to the creations of this world. Now, isn't that interesting? That the hope, which is our greatest good and our highest ability, and you can define hope any way you want, is of similar substance to the creations of the depths. You know, and I don't know what that means, but it's resonates. Let your hope swell towards it into the indeterminable. So let your hope out and let it fill the space in front of you. You know. Now I think you need to. I think he's being a little more subtle than hope is not greed. You know, it's a different kind of thing, and I'm not exactly sure how to define it. Okay, so he says, and then he suddenly is experiencing. He's going into seeing images right now. So I guess I'm already on this waste spot in the rocky depth that seems to me like this giant crater. It's a volcanic crater. So, I mean, it speaks that the depths lie below it in great heated volumes and can come up at any time. In the distance, and that's kind of describes our unconscious. It's like a volcanic crater, and no one knows when it's going to, emit its inner substance. In the distance, I see nestled in the hillside the white house with the columns. Everything is bleak, foggy, and night-like. Okay. That's kind of what I see when I have images. They're very bleak and dark and foggy and night-like. I see from afar Salome in a white dress walking along. She's the son of Elijah, the prophet, or daughter, so she wears white. Walking along the length of the wall toward the left, touching the wall like a blind person. The black serpent behind her. Now, the serpent represents the primitive, unassimilated, undifferentiated psyche, you know. So this is the psyche before it's assimilated, you know, and differentiated. And it's kind of represented by dragons. In I think Sarah's dream, it was a pig, you know. It's this undifferentiated psyche, and the snake is so uncanny and nocturnal. It's a wonderful image, especially a black snake. So anyway, the old man stands under the portal and he waves to me from the distance. So he beckons us. You know, this is he beckons us. So, but hesitantly, I draw closer. He calls Salome back. She approaches him and leans against him. She is like someone suffering. I cannot detect any sacrilege in her. Her hands are white and her face has a gentle expression. You know, and Jung mentioned this in the last time, is that her badness came from the fact that Jung's thinking function had suppressed the eros, or the logos had suppressed eros, and it was subjugating eros, and that's why she was blind, and also why she had been subjugated so long that it kills the announcer of the new God, John the Baptist. You know, and that wasn't her fault, because you can see no sacrilege in her nature. The serpent lies before them. I stand before them clumsily and uncertain, like a stupid boy. You know, Jung was 6'3", by the way. He's a pretty big guy. Here I am again, I would like to say. And the words get stuck in my throat, you know, because everything is uncertain and ambiguous, so he doesn't say anything. The old man eyes me searchingly. What do you want here? He says in a sharp tone. And Jung finally gets his voice and says, forgive me. It's not my obtrusiveness or arrogance that leads me here. I am here perchance not knowing what I want. But I admit that a longing has brought me back, a longing that stayed behind in your house yesterday. And I remember this image of, or something that Gerhard Dorn says, if I can find it here. Let's see. You know, that longing creates, or Jacob Burma, I guess, said the basis of the world is non-being. It's a vacuum, because the beginning of the world is desire, longing, and only an absolute vacuum can have longing. A vacuum, non-being, can, by longing, draw or attract into itself something exceedingly positive, because it creates the world. Longing creates the world. Now, you got to think about that one. It's not exactly obvious, but doesn't it resonate a little bit that through longing, through this sense of, well, I always ask my wife, you know, I mean, when she complains about, it's this sort of love-hate relationship with men's desires, let's say. You know, on the one hand, she's, you know, has a lot of, anyway, I said, what would happen if food had no flavor or taste? You know, would you have the same relationship with food? No, so sometimes you long, there's a vacuum within you for these tastes, you know, and you can fulfill them, you know. So that's just an analogy to something else, but it's sort of a little bit of an analogy. So anyway, longing has brought me here, and I see when he says that. But I admit that longing has brought me back, a longing that stayed behind in your house yesterday. And then he sees Salome raises her face at that, because she knows he's talking about her. And she smiles to Elijah, and she looks like there's quiet happiness. He loves me, you know. Now this is going to become really important, this love between Salome and Jung, because it's really the love between our life, our awareness, and life itself. Okay, that's the relationship here. Our awareness and life itself. I mean, the fact that we take for granted this fact that we're alive, and we're not only alive, but we produce people like Mozart and Michelangelo and Luciano Pavarotti and Rudolf Nureyev and Leo Tolstoy and Picasso and Bertolt Brecht, all these great expressions. So who is this we are, and what is this longing that we experience? But his longing brings him back, and Salome represents sort of this spirit that fed all those great people. I once knew this astronomer. She was a woman about my age, and she was teaching astronomy at the University of Pennsylvania, I think. And I said, "Well, how's it going?" And she said, "Well, I teach beginning astronomy, and whenever I tell everybody that the sun is sometimes going to become a red giant and it's going to envelop the earth and incinerate it, they all get really sad." And she said, "That'll happen in about 6 billion years. And anyway, when you think about it, what's going to happen to Mozart? What's going to happen to Picasso and Shakespeare and all of these wonderful creations? It's just an interesting thought. Anyway, but she's quietly happy, and he's not really sure who she is, Salome, but it is Salome. And he says, "You see, prophet, I am tired. My head is heavy as lead. I'm lost in my ignorance. I toyed with myself long enough." Now he's talking about, I need somebody to help me. I'm desperate here. I've played my hypocritical games with myself, and they've all disgusted me. And finally, there's something with the truth is sprouting from the earth here. Why am I here? What is my ontological purpose? Because I'm sick of all this other stuff, which is not real. He says, all I had was it was clever of me to perform what others expected from me in the world of men, but it seems as if I am more real here. Well, that's pretty interesting. I'm more real here. I mean, because this, when you're if you do have and by the way, Gary's going to do an exercise at 11, which I think it might hopefully give us some inklings of that. He's so I'm going to try to cut out a little early here so we can have some discussion. Let's see. So wordlessly, Elijah. No, he says, "It seems to me if I'm more real here, and yet I do not really like being here, and I even believe that this world resists me. It doesn't like me either. I don't like being here. It doesn't seem to like me. But I feel more real here. And then wordlessly, Elijah and Salome step inside the house, and he follows them reluctantly. This feeling of guilt torments me. Is it bad conscience? I would like to turn back, but I have to keep going." He knows it. The hall is bleak, and there is the shining crystal. And he, we saw the shining crystal last time, and I think there he saw Adam and Eve, and I forget what else he saw. Oh, and then he saw the red sail with the blue-black sea. And there was one other thing. saw. I can't remember. But anyway, he walks up to it in its play of fire. And in the fiery corona, he sees the Mother of God, as if in an old painting. Peter stands to her left, bearing keys. So it's Mary, the Mother of God, with Peter, the rock of the church. On this rock I will build my church. And just thought I'd show you. This is a painting of. You can see what does Peter have there. It's the keys with the Madonna. So that's what he's seeing. And it's just a rather interesting that the first time that Jung sees Philemon, what does Philemon have in his hand? The keys. I don't know if you can see them there, but there they are. Anyway, that was his first vision. And then he saw the Pope with a triple crown in a festive audience. And that is, that's actually is a real crown. And there's the Pope and his triple crown. Now that's supposed to mean, just a second. Okay. That means the ruler of kings and princes, or the father of kings and princes, the ruler of the world, and the vicar of Christ. Those are what the three crowns mean. So those are the three crowns of the father of the church. The one, he's not a man. He's like the Dalai Lama. He has a role similar to the Dalai Lama, one who's chosen. Hi, Tim. We're just into this vision of Elijah and Salome here. So, and then he sees a sitting Buddha in a circle of fire. Now, this was interesting just because he mentions this in that essay that we saw there the other day. And he's talking about the difference between the Buddha in the circle of fire and the Christ, and he says, passion, whose conquest still requires so much effort in the case of Christ, and does so incessantly and in ever greater measure. Now, that sort of describes the passion and the suffering. There's a passion and a suffering in Christianity that is a great mystery, but that has left the Buddha. The Buddha is beyond passion, beyond suffering, but it's still there, and it surrounds him as a blazing fire, and he's both unaffected and untouchable. So that was the next vision. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it reminds me of, I think Jung said something like, with Christ, being Christ was something that sort of just happened to him, and with Buddha, it was like a choice.
Yeah, Jesus was born, and he had a destiny and a fate which was preordained. There's just this aspect of that he was here. It's a very interesting image of the one who is to now it actually has a much simpler meaning than the one who atones for the sin of Adam. Okay, what was the sin of Adam? In fact, it happens on Golgotha, which is the hill of the skull, which means that's where Adam's skull is buried. Adam's skull is buried at the root base of Golgotha. On a tree, this is the tree now of not of knowledge, but of life. The sacrificed one is hung from it, and his blood comes down and anoints the skull of Adam, and then atones all those who came after him. So that's sort of the very, very deep, undecipherable message of this predestined sacrifice, you know. But on the other hand, the Adam's sin was really to leave non-being. You know, when we leave non-being and become this Archimedean point, this third point that's left is now looking down at itself. Who have we offended? We've offended nature. We've offended the Great Mother because we have left nature. We're no longer a part of nature anymore. And this is what makes us sick, okay, is that we are separated from our bodies and the whole process of what we're trying to do here is to reunite in the, you know, in the mysterium conjunctionis, you know, for ego to return to the source and to be its own redeemer. You know, that's the alchemical thing, is that we need to bring these images up from the depths like Jung is doing, have a communication with them, and become its empty vessel and create the Philosopher's Stone, which is this divine child. So anyway, yeah, that's true. And I don't really understand the passion and the suffering. I'm sure we could go through it, but I don't think it's helpful because it's maybe we can do that someday, but I don't think it's helpful right here, you know, at this point, you know. But anyway, and let's keep moving because I want to stop here in just a few minutes. So maybe I'll just finish, and then the other things he sees are now these are very interesting images. Then he sees now he sees these one after another, and you can just gloss over them, but you know, they're pretty interesting. You know, I mean, he sees Kali. This is the mother who devours back. You know, she's the mother who devours back her young. She's really is called the goddess of transformation. You know, so she's venerated and worshipped. You know, that's a very interesting thing. You know, I think, that's another thing that would be hard to wrap our heads around. Then she sees also Salome desperately wringing her hands. Then he sees the white shape of a girl with black hair, his own soul. And then he sees the white shape of a man, which appeared to look like Michelangelo's Moses. You know, so there's Michelangelo's Moses, famed for his horns on his head, you know. You notice in the background, there's the green man. Do you see that? The green man. Anyway, so then Elijah and Salome, the real ones, stand before him softly smiling. Now, what's going to happen in the rest of it, and we'll finish it next time, but it's basically that Jung is resisting these images that he is having, and because he identifies with his own thoughts, okay? You know, who am I? I am my own thoughts. Well, should I let these thoughts in my head, you know, because they're horrible, you know, I mean, and that's why he's feeling so anxious, you know, and he says, you know, it's this description of them, of their nature. He just doesn't know exactly what they are and what his relationship with them is. And so he's being very evasive about it. And this is where, and we'll go into it because I'm not really going to do a very good job of describing it here, but it's where Elijah tells him that when you see a deer or an animal come in the forest, do you think that you brought them into the forest? I mean, and what Jung says about this, now I don't know if I can determine this, but that this is that, like Brahman, the creator God, when, you know, they just these elephants just appear before him. He's supposedly is there when it happened, but he's not really the source of it, because he's as astonished as everybody else, you know, is. But he's sort of the conduit of it. So what Elijah is telling him, no, you don't have to say that you created these images, that they are here. They're just like a deer or an animal walking in the forest. And now we'll go over this a little bit more, because I've got a conception of what it means, but I'm not communicating it very well. But what Jung says about it later is that this was what taught him psychic objectivity. In other words, that what we're experiencing in the inner world is not us, it's the other. And why is it the other? Because if it's not the other, then we can't have a relationship with it. It needs to be something other than that. So that taught him psychic objectivity. So that was why in some of his magical analysis, where some woman said molecules are spinning around, and I don't know whether it's Jung speaking or someone else speaking, or it's me speaking or someone else speaking. That's what she described the analytical hour as like. But Jung said that that was where he learned to tell the patient during the analysis, when they're talking, he'd say, "Shh, quiet, something's happening." In other words, let's let it happen. You know, so as they sat there, incubating whatever was going to happen, it would appear somehow in their discussion. Well, anyway, why don't we got about probably 15 minutes, and then Gary's going to do an exercise for us. So, and now anybody can talk about anything they want to, and we'll, why don't you start, Adam, because Gary is going to have the whole last half hour. Is there anything that happened this week, or anything that you'd like to share about anything? We don't have much time.
Yeah, I think probably nothing that would be easy to share about. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, we need to have a little longer time then. We'll try to do that next time. But I really think it's a good time to share. I mean, and Adam, Gary and I were talking about how valuable, I mean, what a master you are at what you're doing. And, you know, and you're yet on the other hand, you're a mysterious person. And so anything you can say to give us clues about your mystery are helpful. So anyway, how about you, Charles? Oh, go ahead. You want to say?
Yeah. No, yeah, I was just going to say, you know, my own process is so it's so painful that it's like it's not easy to talk about. So I identify with what Jung is writing here, and you know, this is just me, and I'm sure it's projection on my part, but like it can be like so amazing to like watch Jung experience these sort of excruciating states and stuff, and be like, boy, I wish I could have that, because it's so meaningful. But I mean, in my case, I feel like I'm experiencing this stuff and it's so painful, and it ends up being meaningful, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Well, and Gary mentioned that too, though, that is the pain that a shaman feels. And usually if the only way that we can heal someone else's wound, the way we awaken the anti-venom to the pain, is to experience the pain ourselves. And then we can heal someone else who has a similar pain. So healers, shaman healers, tend to experience a lot of unease, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
the idea is, I think that any time we experience pain, we have to remember that we are also awakening the healing half of that pain, within us, so
Yeah.
anyway, it's something to think about. I mean, it was just something Gary and I thought was one of why you are so good at what you're doing, because I think this this sense of great empathic power, because I'm feeling this. Maybe you've never felt it, but I know what I'm talking about comes through very genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, Charles? How about you? I hope we can get to everybody. You got anything to report?
I guess recently I've been trying to kind of. I feel like I've been having inflation for a long time, and I'm trying to kind of come down and return to earth, and trying to. I feel like I'm an energy hoarder, and all of my energy and life force is really only spent on myself, and I'm trying to just trying to be more like giving, and I'm trying to shift kind of like where I operate from, and what I focus on. Try not to be so egocentric, basically. It's difficult. It seems like I have to do it every day. When I wake up, I have to do it all over again and figure it out all over again. And it's just it's gonna take a while, but it feels a little bit better. That's for sure.
One thing, Charles, just about you, we were talking about your highest meaning, which has something to do with almost with the physical universe. I just want to mention that we're getting a 12-inch reflector telescope, and we're going to, the Jupiter and Saturn later this month are going to be closer than they've ever been. So we're going to see them. But I just wonder what would happen to your sense of isolation and things if you would go to an observatory, or someone who had joined an astronomy club or something, and just looked at M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy, or looked at Mars or Saturn and its rings.
Oh, I love that.
Well, I just think it would awaken an energy within you that is really not going to be annoying to anyone else.
I am a bit of a heretic.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, we need the feminine in our life, but I think we also, the fact that you need, you seem to have a great affinity for the mysteries of the cosmos. I think that it would be very something that would be add value. How about you, Tim? You always have interesting things going on.
Well, yes, I actually had kind of a revelatory experience with this dream that we've been talking about.
Yes.
In the other group.
Yeah.
And I won't go into the details, but what I realized was, I think the dream was trying to tell me that the environment that we find ourselves in is like the frozen north. If you have a certain attitude that it's trying to kill you, it very probably will kill you. But if you have an attitude that, well, this is a world with its own gifts and resources, and we just have to learn how to live there, then the chances are that you're going to be able to not only survive, but to thrive. And the more you can see a strange world as a world full of resources and new opportunities, the better our chances are. And I feel like that's our moment right now, where we're trying to survive in this country that's tearing itself apart. And there seems to be no clear warmth or path forward. And I feel like my challenge is to try to figure out what the natural environment is providing for me. How can I step up to the challenge and be able to use my own creativity to blossom in that space? So that's what's on my mind.
Well, one thing I thought about, Tim, in relation to your dream and also your visionary experience that you had before, is that the pole star in this vision is either the very stark image of the vast wilderness in one case. In the other case, it's the image of an iceberg with only 1/8 showing above the surface and 7/8 underneath. These are the highest symbols on the stained glass windows of your temple of wisdom. So what do they mean? I mean, our orienting points are the iceberg and the vast wilderness, in addition to a lot of feminine images that we could add to that, but they're just, they kind of remind me of Charles's images of the cosmos, that when they come close to him, there is a magnetic resonance within him, But I mean, it also, there is a scene in the Red Book where Jung goes and talks to absolute zero. I mean, it's personified as a person, and he's going to the edge of the universe to where there is nothing, and he sees this lonely character standing there, and he says, "I know who you are." He says, "How do you know that? You who have a heart, you come to me. I don't have a heart." I mean, I'm at the edge. I mean, he's just this, the physical matter out of which life came. And yet life has a relationship with this physical matter, because we are the rocks out of which life came. We came out of a rock, and now we're a living, talking rock with flesh on ourselves. But anyway, the stark image of the iceberg and the vast wilderness, to me, are wonderful symbols to be at the altar.
Yeah,
the divine.
For those of you who don't know about this, I had this vision last winter, and in part of it, I'm standing on this rock at the edge of the wilderness. It's a very it's a sedimentary rock that's been pushed up this way, and there are all these shards on top of it. And so I'm standing in my bare feet, naked in the snow. And at one point, and I realize, this is kind of dangerous, but I'm so seized with the moment. At one point, I fall off the rock, and I get myself up. I'm kind of bloodied and sort of scared by that. But I get back up on the rock, and it turns out to have been this wonderful experience, part of which I spent just sitting after I did this little ritual. I just spent sitting, just being aware of how beautiful the world is. And here I am naked in the snow after being out for half an hour. And it just felt comfortable and exhilarating to me. And I think of that now and I think, God, how does anybody stand that? But the fact is, it's a certain attitude. And if you have the attitude that you're in a pregnant moment in time, then you can unfold the wisdom that is available. Whereas for most of my life, I think in that situation, I would just be cowering and thinking, how am I going to survive this? Can I get back to the warmth? So there is that possibility. And I feel like that's one of the moments that we're experiencing now.
It's interesting too that you say unfold, because you would unfold it in a diorama, maybe. And the other thing is, what were you doing in the diorama? Remember, you were talking about the rock that was up like this with the shards coming out? Well, you were trying with a piece of styrofoam to lift another almost obelisk-like menhir. Isn't that what they call those in Celtic mythology? This stone that stands up like this, it's a menhir. I mean, you were almost trying to put a menhir in the diorama with the styrofoam. But anyway, how about Kevin and Marina? Maybe I think Jan left, but Kevin, do you have any things to report?
Yeah, I just felt like I've been really developing my sensing. Like even today, I bought a camera. Like I need a phone, I need a computer, like to do my stuff. But no, I go buy a camera. That's how big of a drive the sensing is developing towards in me. Yeah. And it's also funny because once developing sensing, the God image also changes. Like the other day, I was watching, the scenery, and I was thinking, perhaps there is no meaning. It's just is. This statement of it's just is. It just is. It's nothing. It's nothing. It just is. It's always been is, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely sensing. Like, I feel like the God image changes with what access of conscious awareness we have. And we make often the mistake to create it as only truth. And I don't know, people try to find God everywhere, but like for me, it's like God cannot escape. God cannot escape. For me, it's like that. And that's my thoughts.
Well, that's interesting. It's like I'm thinking Charles should go to an observatory, and I'm going to try to see Saturn and Jupiter. I mean, I just have this urge to see it. So I think your camera too is going to be a way of seeing that heretofore has not been available to your psyche. I mean, just to create a beautiful photographic image.
And not only that, I was looking at the camera, I was looking straight at the lenses, and I was looking, and I had this image of God, like, not like a numinous experience of God, but I had this experience of God, like the very experience, the talk in Hinduism and so on, it's like, because everything comes from it, but if you look inside, it's just an empty box. And so, that's a sort of a pathway to one image of it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, how about you, Marina? And then Dawn and Carlos and Kathy, normally you can say anything if you want to too, but normally I know you guys like to remain quiet, but you certainly are invited. Marina, do you have anything?
Well, the only thing that I can report is that I tried to do some active imagination, and I sat there for quite a while in the darkness, and I did see an image, I'm still trying to process the image. The image was a Japanese woodcutter.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was reluctant to talk to me, or whether my ego got in the way, I don't know. So he's very focused on his work, and you've been talking about seeing things. And some of the dialogue that I tried to have was about clearing a path. So
he's one who takes a piece of wood and makes an artwork on it. Is that what you meant?
no, it wasn't
he's
that
just
sort
a
of
forester.
Yeah, very
logger.
humble. Yeah.
Okay, so he's sort of the master of trees.
Yes. Well, and yeah, but he says that it's the, you know, how do you choose which tree? He says the trees decide.
Ooh, that's beautiful. So you did have a little bit of thing, and the fact that
a little bit.
Yeah, and the fact that he's Asian is also very interesting because he represents a foreign land. You know, so he's this master of trees from a foreign land. Well, that was a very interesting. That would keep me going for a week. The tree chooses itself. You know. Well, unless Dawn or Carlos or Kathy have anything to say, I'm going to turn it over to Gary. So I'm going to mute myself.
Cool. So I was thinking about, you know, what Craig does with active imagination. And my understanding is that his active imagination practice is commonly done at like 2 a.m. And this has a really interesting advantage because, you know, if you're doing this at 2 a.m, then you're in a state which is very close to being asleep with some consciousness. And to do these active imaginations, you don't, you know, the ego has to be there, but it's not the one in control. So the question is, you know, what's in control? So if we think of it as the dream maker, it's, or whatever you want to call it, you know, the question is, how do we get this to be present? You know, and I've been practicing active imagination, and I find it extremely difficult. You know, this is not something which is easy to do. And out of the readings today, you know, Jung, you know, the new world is weak and artificial. And then he said, it's the unsightly put together semi-reality, you know, and these are just, and then another one, you know, you enter through the gate entirely poor, pathetic, humble, and ignorant. And, you know, I think of any practices which I have tried, you know, active imagination is by far and away the most difficult. And one of the things that, you know, that I really like is how Craig keeps bringing up the, you know, the picture of the bear, you know, like this is the consciousness, this is the being, you know, and I happened to come across one that I thought, oh yes, this is it, you know, because what we're really trying to work with is our hairy monster, you know, and this one is, you know, it's a dog, but it's like, it's a huge dog. This thing stands maybe 5-6 feet tall, but it's got like this super coarse grass growing out of it. And, you know, this thing just struck me like, oh yes, you know, that's it. That's what I'm trying to reach for, you know, or the bear. And it's extremely difficult because it's just not a level of consciousness that, you know, that we tend to work at. And so what I wanted to do today is offer, you know, an active imagination, kind of a meditation that we'll try. And the point of this active imagination is to bring up the unconscious and have it be a little more in control. So This one's, normally in meditation, you do it sitting down, but this one, you're actually going to have to do standing, and you're going to have to take off your shoes, because part of the process is going to be getting in touch with the earth and feeling a rootedness. And eventually you'll be able to do this sitting or lying down. But to begin with, it's going to be a whole lot easier if you do it standing. And you can all kill your videos for this. And I really liked both what Tim and Kevin had to say. I thought, wow, that is deep. Let's see, I think it was Tim that said, an attitude of being in a pregnant moment in time. I just love that saying. That was great. And then Kevin said, God changes with which axis of consciousness we have. And that, that too struck me as being like, wow, that is deep. And, and literally what we are going to try doing, unlike, a lot of meditations, they feel sort of like you're in your higher consciousness. This one is going to feel extremely rooted in the earth. So it's more of a soulful meditation if you want. But the point of this is that if you can get the feeling of the rootedness, of the depth, then and this is a practice. I mean, this will take a lot of practice outside of this, but then, if you want to do the active imagination work and you're trying to get in the state where the images arise from something other than your ego consciousness, then I've found this to be a really handy technique. And, if you try it and you find like some modifications, then, come back and report. But anyway, let's all go ahead and kill our video. And then if you haven't done it yet, take off your shoes. And then stand up. So first, take some deep breaths, fully inflating your stomach. And just watch your breath for a short time. We're bringing our awareness to our body. Now, with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine that your body, your legs have become extremely large. You have grown immensely in size. You feel a tremendous weight, a tremendous strength. I want you to imagine standing in the twilight before the entrance to a cave. This cave is a place where the primitive people had their rituals, their art, their practices, their sacred ways of being. Now imagine that with your immense size and immense weight, your feet are growing connected to the ground. You feel yourself putting down roots deep into the earth. Your feet are literally rooted to the earth, and your consciousness is moving down into the earth. Everything that you are or will be will come from this rooted place. You are literally a part of the earth. Without lifting your feet, you find yourself moving into the cave. There is just enough light to see by, to see the walls. You descend. The earth is carrying you deeper into the cave. You come to a place where there are drawings on the ceiling, and there is a wide open space. You look at the ceiling and know that the earth may guide you to add your own symbol. While feeling the connection with the earth, we will now be silent for 6 minutes. You feel yourself coming back to awareness. The roots that you would put deep down into the earth begin to retract. You remember the feeling of non-being and the creativity that you had during the connection to the earth. The cave begins to dissolve, and you are back in the room. You open your eyes, you wiggle your hands and feet, and you can turn back on your video. So, any comments?
I like that. I had a dream. Well, I have had a dream a while ago where there was a cave I was afraid to go into. And I have an anima figure that keeps recurring, and she'd been trying to walk towards it, and she fell into the water. And she was like, and we were both like, there are spirits in that cave. Like, we were afraid to go into it. So I was imagining I went into that cave, and then I imagined like the cave paintings on the wall, and I just had an image of like a stag's antlers and stuff.
Oh, nice.
I guess. So I kind of just naturally had like a stag sort of antler image that I left up there.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. Anyone else?
I just saw, I don't know why, but I just saw the green man with just like air flowing out of his beard, and then it became a sun figure with rays coming out like this. Then it became a moon figure, and there was an image too, like Carl had, of just bull's horns, or some kind of a reindeer too. That anyway, they were all just images, in the animating the darkness,
Craig.
Yeah.
When you say the green man, do you mean Sir Nunos? Is anyone familiar with Sir Nunos?
Cernunnos. Well, he is probably a little more differentiated than the green man. The green man is sort of more pan-like, a Northern European pan, but Cernunnos is kind of the antlered deer god. I mean, he has antlers like an elk.
I had a vision of a man once, and I couldn't see his face, but he had antlers coming out of his head. And I don't think I'd seen it before. Maybe I'd seen it somewhere, but I guess the Germanic people the shamans used to wear like a mask, a fringed mask, so you couldn't see there's a band, actually, I saw it about a year after the vision, where they dress up like that. I'll send a picture.
Somebody sent me the most fabulous Cernunnos dream I ever saw. I was just seeing if I could remember it, but I can't remember it right now. But I just remember, when the Romans would come into these places where they were worshiping Cernunnos, they would say, they would tell the Romans, "He whom you call Zeus, we call Cernunnos." It's the antlered, the stag god.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna share a picture.
Carl, you're muted. You might want to, Carl, you want to unmute? Cool.
Okay, you see that screenshot? Did I share it?
Yep.
So like about a year after I had that vision, I saw these people, and it's kind of it's called healing, which is, well, basically translated to English, it would be healing, but they're like kind of they do like Proto-Germanic stuff, deciphered runes and whatnot, or but yeah, they have songs about like fighting the Romans and stuff, things from that age, whatnot, the Germanic tribes.
Yeah, the idea too, I think, is just assimilating the undifferentiated psyche, as an other, and in this case, it would be in what do they call it? Theriomorphic form, animal. And animal form, but there is no difference. I mean, this is as great a God as the God of light. In fact, it's actually, I think, is because of its uncanny character. It's a little more real. I mean, there's I don't know, this. I always think of, when you're talking about that, of the this front of Joseph Campbell's. That's 35,000 years old, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's sort of a primitive Chernunos. It's one of the few wood relics that have survived. Anyway, how about Marina, Adam, or Kevin, or Charles? You guys got any?
Got very lightheaded doing this exercise, actually.
Yes.
I felt, so the weight of my legs became so heavy that I was conscious that I was a little lightheaded. So I was aware of that in the body. Then deep in the cave, for me, I saw, and I'm trying to process this, alligator or crocodile, but some, a gaping mouth with teeth.
Nice.
Which,
wow.
nice. I don't know about nice, but something. And I'm just kind of thinking about that in terms of the cave and the devouring mother, maybe. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
The very primitive psyche that we're encountering there is like the dragon in alchemy, I think. But,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be afraid of it. It's
like,
just something we need to acquaint ourselves with, and then it will give up the maiden and the gold to us.
Yeah. And also the word triumph. So I don't know what, again, this is kind of very raw, but triumph or triumphant, something like that.
Something to do with a 3 or something, Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What about Tim, Adam, Kevin, or Charles?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marina.
Yeah, I guess, I'd had a dream on Monday, which after the dream, I had this kind of like vision of a Andean condor, but it was a kind of like a cave painting rendition of it. So that was kind of what appeared for me. So, yeah.
Isn't that lovely? I mean, the alligator and the stag and the green man. And how about you, Tim? You have any impressions?
No, but I thought it was a great exercise. It was very vivid, and I felt like it went by pretty quickly. So I'd like to do it again on my own.
I felt like I was in a big altar, a cave altar, and it was like, what's that tree that has the twisted trunk in the Vatican? You know, it kind of felt like that, you know. But it just that kind of a room, you know. But how about you, either Kevin or Charles?
Mine was not so visual, but after walking into the cave and reaching the kind of opening, I decided to sit down instead of stand, and just the 6 minutes of silence was really apparently something that I really needed. I must have been I must have been really needing that, because it gave me a really good chance to kind of differentiate some opposing forces within me that I have been troubled by. So I kind of end up kind of beating myself up because feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or not doing what I feel I should. And just the quietness kind of gave me a chance to differentiate. Well, I just have one part of me that wants to do this, and another part of me that wants to do the opposite. Doesn't mean that I should shame myself over it. It's just that one tends to be stronger than the other, because in this exercise also, it's me just being who I am. I have a lot of difficulty being grounded and have a relationship with the earth. And for me, physical life is very like, it's not like it's so hard. It's just something that I don't want to do, and I don't want to give it my attention. But this is where the other people are, and the part of me that needs relationship is like very much in dire need of being on the earth. And so it was a particularly good exercise for me. So yeah.
Thank you, Charles. Next time maybe we can end when they don't have an exercise. We'll end a little early and give everybody a time to talk a little bit more at length on things, because I'd like to hear Adam and Marina too, and Carl. Anything? What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, it was a great exercise. I feel like this is an exercise from Adam and Eve. Without going to conceptualize it too much, it's like in Islam, Adam and Eve is like 30 meters high. In Hadith, you have the Quran, the Holy Quran, and you have the Hadith. And Hadith, Adam and Eve are 30 meters high. And Jung also talk about Rex and Regina in I think Mysterious Connections and so on. So there is a statue that has life, and this is a big statue. When we talk about statue, we don't talk about small things, we talk about big things. So I felt like your exercise was quite archetypal in that way. You're asking us to become huge, which is a
That
symbol
was
of the
very
self.
interesting when that. I
But
liked it. Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking and this is somewhat of my projection as well. When I went into the cave, I just had this feeling of loneliness from the. I felt like when God image approaches this cave, I felt there was a huge loneliness from God, or from spirit, if you like. It must be very lonely and this is somewhat also a projection, because I don't think humans can fully take away themselves from it, is that when the spirit approaches this cave, how lonely is that feeling? And that's one aspect. And another aspect, it reminds me of a dream I had, an archetypal dream I had. And it was war, and I went into this underground, and there was a huge river, huge river on both sides. And on the left and right, it was full of dead people. And on the front, there was a huge tree. And it was so huge tree. And I walked down this steep path towards this huge tree. And I climbed up and I sat on it. And I don't know, the feeling of the tree of life is like the feeling of eternal. And I always ask myself, when can I have this feeling again? You know, it's a feeling of eternal. It's an eternal peace. Nothing can touch you. It's just full on bliss. And this feeling, we often think of it as something that has to happen in dreams or certain mystical experience. But I realize the feeling of life itself is always there. It's never away. Like it's always there. If we take, it's just there. If we just sit and feel our blood pumping, you know, the you know, like I said, I'm like in the sensing state now, so that's why I also sharing this. Like, yeah, the blood pumping is on the life that is carrying us. Yeah, I felt the tree of life again, and I felt like it's never was far away. Then my last insight was I realized the tree of life was never my own. It's just it was never my own. Like I like to think it's my own, but it never was, because everyone experienced the same eternal bliss. So it's just fluctuating around basically, and yeah, it's crazy to think about it.
Well, Dawn just said, I was interrupted and I usually need longer to get into the state. She's speaking of a mask I once saw doing exercise. So she saw a mask, and such as the face of a clown, and over his clown makeup, there was another mask which covered half of its face so that it could not see out of one eye. That's very interesting. And its entire mouth was covered so that it couldn't speak. So it was this mute, one-eyed kind of a jester type of a being, which is very elemental. And Carlos or Kathy, do you have anything to add? Always very welcome to add, but you don't have to. It's just we can be observers too. But if not, next time, whenever Gary or Adam don't have an exercise, I'll end a little early, and then we'll give everybody a chance to kind of, you know, just give us a little bit of orientation, and we can ask a few questions, because I think we're all seeking things here, and you know, like we're all feeling a little disoriented, and let's try to at least share our disorienting aspects that we have. So anyway, well, thank you, everybody. I kind of went on a little long, so I didn't get through it, but we'll see you next time. We do have the 2 dream sessions at 7 p.m. Chicago. It's Monday and Wednesday, so you're all welcome to those too. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and I appreciate everybody's Tim and Adam and Kevin and Carl, Marina, Dawn, Carlos, Kathy, Charles, and Gary. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Great day, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.